So about a week ago, the game director for Final Fantasy XIV, Yoshi P, sat down with Eurogamer to kind of discuss the advancements in Final Fantasy XIV. And one of the things that came up is whether or not Yoshi P wanted to start a new MMO. And to that, Yoshi P said, "Hold up, wait a minute. Bro, have you not heard of A Realm Reborn? You know how much of a pain A Realm Reborn was to make, and that wasn't even a new game from scratch. You want me to make a brand new one from scratch? Ain't gonna happen," he said. Unless I get hit by some inspiration. So the next thing that kind of came up was the topic of creating new innovation in Final Fantasy XIV. Yoshi P is a really smart guy, and he's a really talented game developer. And he came out there and he said, "Listen, I know that a new setting, more story, new jobs, they're going to create excitement for the game, but they're not going to keep the game fresh." And he said, Yoshi P said, that we're going to need to add brand new things, new innovations into Final Fantasy XIV that aren't just the usual additions, that aren't just the usual expansion features. And he said we're going to start that off with graphics. So who knows what else there's in store when he says something like that. Now, another thing they talked about was kind of the extension of the free trial. Yoshi P said, yeah, well, we will be extending the free trial from 60 to 70 with the release of the new expansion Dawn Trail. And that kind of led to a discussion about the generosity of the free trial. And Eurogamer said to Yoshi P, "Man, this is a very generous trial. Would the game ever go free to play?" Yoshi P said, "Well, we don't have any plans to do that. It costs a lot of money to make the game, and the sales of the expansions are crucial for us to sustain the production of Final Fantasy XIV." And this particular point led to some discussion in the Final Fantasy XIV realm, in the Final Fantasy XIV online spaces. And some people were saying things like, "Yeah, man, I really wish the game never goes free to play." And so a lot of people have kind of been thinking, is this a good idea? Should the game go free to play? And so I decided to kind of sit there and think to myself what the pros and cons might be for Final Fantasy XIV going free to play. And so the number one pro I was able to think about with the game going free to play is more people would be able to try the game, of course, because the barrier of entry would be lower. And then immediately I said to myself, hold on, wait a minute. You've got a extremely generous free trial with hundreds of hours of content to do before the trial runs out. The barrier to entry is already low. And so then I thought to myself, okay, well, are there any other advantages you could see to this? And I concluded no, it's only cons. There's only negative things that could occur by making the game free to play. And the first thing that comes to mind is the huge increase that would occur in free money trading and bots. If you make the game free to play, then you have more and more people trying to get there, trying to get to end game for free and botting and, trying to make more gil, because even if they get banned, it's not a big deal. They don't have to buy the game again. They don't have to buy the expansion again. They just make a new account. It's not a problem. So that's the first thing that would occur. Now, the second problem is there would be a massive shift in the quality of the community of Final Fantasy XIV. Picture this scenario. You have a cousin, right? Let's call him Alex. Alex gets a new watch, and he puts on his new watch, and he is pretty athletic, so you see him running around, lifting weights with his watch, doing activities with his watch. You're seeing his watch getting banged up. Maybe he hits the wall. He doesn't really care. It's not a big deal. And then a week later, you see Alex with a new watch, a different watch. And all of a sudden, his behavior is completely different. He's polishing it every other night. He's putting it on carefully. He's taking it off carefully. He never plays sports with it. He never hits his hand on the wall while he's wearing his new watch. And so you go up to Alex and you say, "Hey, Alex, what happened to your old watch?" He said, "I threw it into the garbage." And you ask, "Well, Alex, how much was it?" He's like, "Oh, $5. And then you say, "Oh, what about your new watch?" He says, "Oh, but this new watch I have? Oh, this is a Rolex. Yeah, this has cost me several $1,000s." And so the moral of the story here is, of course, that When someone pays for something, it becomes more valuable to them. They care about it more. They cherish it more. This is just something that is inherent in human psychology, and it happens all of the time. And so, one of the big factors, one of the big reasons why there is so much admiration for the Final Fantasy XIV community is because of the barriers to entry, the financial barriers to entry placed for that game. You know, it acts as a filter for people who want to take the game seriously. Whenever you ask for a commitment, especially a financial commitment, people are more likely to take that thing seriously. So there would be a massive decrease in the quality of the community if the game were to go free to play. Now, another problem, of course, is if the game goes free to play, how does the game make money? Well, the game is already selling some cosmetic microtransactions, and the way that Final Fantasy XIV sells their microtransactions, I think, is above and beyond. I don't like microtransactions at all. Let me get that clear. But the way that Square Enix sells microtransactions in Final Fantasy XIV, I think, is way better than the way that many other MMOs do it. Take, for example, Lost Ark. In Lost Ark, you have dollars or whatever your local currency is that you have to convert to a second currency, an in-game currency, which then you have to convert into another in-game currency. And so you have this obfuscation of your currency, not just once, but twice. And the reason why Lost Ark goes ahead and creates this obfuscation in currency is so that the consumer and the gamer loses track of the value that they're spending in the game, because you know that your $5 can buy you a gallon of milk. You know that your $5 might buy you a loaf of bread. You know what $5 is. But you don't know what 200 crystals are. Like, you're not using crystals in real life. You're not using crystals day to day. So the value of the currency is obfuscated, which is done intentionally so that the consumer loses track of their spending so that they could spend more. And these things are predatory, but this is what free-to-play MMOs end up having to do. And of course, there are also pay-to-win elements that occur, which impacted the actual game design itself. To use Lost Ark again, they have something called the Crystalline Aura, which is a monthly subscription. And so some people can afford to use the subscription, and some people can't. So this is already creating some pay-to-win. But it also changes the way the game is designed for Lost Ark free-to-play players to even be in the stratosphere of pay-to-win players. They have to continuously make alts, and they have to keep farming and grinding and doing really boring content just to compete. And it's designed that way on purpose so that you are incentivized to give up, throw your hands in the air and say, fuck it, I'm gonna spend the money. And these things would start sinking into and seeping into the actual game design of Final Fantasy XIV. Now, it's kind of ironic that this has happened around the same time that we have this Unity drama. We have Unity coming out trying to charge indie game devs per installation of their games. And Unity went out there and they've taken a big risk. They've taken a big risk of pissing people off in hopes that they'll make more money. Their greed has caused them to take a risk like this. And if Final Fantasy XIV were to go free to play, they could end up making more money. It would be a big risk. And it would take a lot of greed to take a risk like that and to risk their reputation all for a few short-term dollars. And so, to kind of wrap up this video, Final Fantasy XIV cannot go free to play because Final Fantasy XIV is what is floating Square Enix financially right now. So the risk of that would not only be a risk for Final Fantasy XIV, but it would be a risk for Square Enix as a company as a whole.